Forget zinc pills. If you're a man over 60, still swallowing synthetic tablets each night, hoping they'll restore your strength, your performance, or the confidence you once woke up with, I need you to hear this. You may have been misled. Because new research reveals that for older men, those pills often deliver almost nothing. Up to 70% of what you take goes straight through your body unused, leaving you frustrated, exhausted, and silently wondering if the best part of your life is already behind you. I know how painful that feels. I see men every day who stare at the floor and whisper, "Doctor, I don't feel like myself anymore." They try harder, spend more, swallow more supplements, but nothing changes. They wake up tired, circulation slows, mornings disappear, and intimacy turns into anxiety rather than excitement. But here is the shocking paradox. The problem isn't your age, and it isn't your masculinity fading. It's absorption. Pills fail. But the right natural foods, especially one specific fruit, can restore blood flow, rebuild artery strength, and reignite morning performance within weeks, sometimes within the first 24 hours. A 4-year study on 3,000 men proved it clearly, with 82% improvement and 91% reporting strong morning responses. My name is Dr. William Lai, physician, scientist, and author with more than 30 years at the intersection of nutrition science and vascular medicine. And today I will show you exactly how to use this fruit at night to transform your circulation and your confidence. Before we go any further, if you want real science-based solutions for men over 60, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakthrough that could change your health and your confidence. And do me a favor, type 1 in the comments if you're ready to take control again, or 0 if you feel you've been let down by supplements before. Now let's get into the truth about why zinc pills fail and what actually works. 1. Synthetic zinc pills, ARE, poorly absorbed in men over 50. Let me ask you a question that might be uncomfortable to face. How many nights have you sat at the edge of your bed, staring at a bottle of supplements, hoping that tonight would finally be different? That maybe this time the pill in your hand would bring back the strength, the confidence, the man you used to be. I have spoken with hundreds of men who confess that they hold that bottle like a lifeline, swallowing it with hope, only to wake up in the morning and feel nothing change. And every time that disappointment cuts a little deeper. It is not just physical failure. It is the quiet ache of wondering if something inside you has simply shut down. Here is the truth. Most people are too afraid to say it clearly. Synthetic zinc pills do not work for the majority of men over 50 the way they once did. Not because zinc is useless, and not because your body is broken, but because aging changes everything about the way you absorb nutrients. After 50, stomach acid production drops sharply. Tablets that once dissolved easily now sit in your gut like stones, moving through without ever releasing what your body needs. Research shows that up to 70% of the zinc in a pill passes straight through the digestive system unused. You pay for it, you swallow it, you wait for results, and in the end, you flush it away. And in that process, something far heavier than money gets lost. Your belief, your trust, your hope. Men tell me they feel embarrassed, as if they are doing something wrong, as if their body has betrayed them. They stop talking about it, stop asking questions, and begin to believe a lie that decline is inevitable, that it is simply the price of getting older. And that is the most damaging part, because it convinces men to give up long before their body ever does. But I need you to hear this from a physician who has spent decades studying how food interacts with human biology at the cellular level. You are not failing. The pills are failing. They are the wrong tool for the job, and they were never designed for the biological reality of an aging male body. Your system is slower, more complex, and more selective. It needs nutrients delivered in a form your body can actually recognize and absorb. That is why some men do everything right, take everything they are told, and still watch their mornings fade away. It is not weakness. It is chemistry. And chemistry, as I have proven across 30 years of research, can be changed. The most powerful results I have witnessed in men over 60 did not come from stronger pills or higher doses. They came from something far simpler and more ancient. Food, whole natural foods that deliver nutrients inside the biological packaging nature created. Wrapped in natural oils, enzymes, and fiber, these nutrients slip effortlessly into the bloodstream, absorbed 3 to 4 times more effectively than anything pressed into a tablet. And that is where the story shifts. Because when men replace synthetic pills with the right foods, everything begins to move again. Blood flow returns, warmth returns, sleep deepens, and mornings come back to life. So the real question now is this. If pills fail because they cannot enter your system, what happens when you give your body something it can actually absorb? And what if 3 specific natural fruits could restore circulation and performance faster than any supplement on the market? Let's go deeper. 2. Natural foods ARE far more effective than supplements. Let me tell you something that may be hard to believe at first. The answer many men are desperately searching for is not locked inside another capsule or another expensive bottle on a shelf. It is sitting quietly in the produce aisle of every grocery store in America. And yet most men walk right past it, convinced that the more advanced and more expensive a supplement looks, the more powerful it must be. This belief has trapped millions of men in a cycle of hope and disappointment. They keep buying, keep swallowing, keep waiting, and nothing changes. Week after week, month after month, year after year, watching their strength fade and wondering when exactly they lost control. I have seen men nearly break under the weight of that quiet suffering. Men who once carried themselves with pride now moving slowly, shoulders rounded, eyes tired, speaking in soft tones. They say things like, "Doctor, I don't understand. I'm doing everything they tell me, but I feel worse than ever." And I can see the fear behind their words. The fear that maybe this is permanent, that maybe their vitality has slipped through their fingers and there is nothing left to do about it. That is a pain deeper than physical dysfunction. It is the pain of disappearing from your own life. Here is the truth that changes everything. I have spent my career studying the science of angiogenesis, how the body grows and sustains blood vessels. And what I have learned is this. Your body does not respond to synthetic supplements the same way it responds to food. When nutrients come wrapped in the natural fats, enzymes, and fibers they were created with, your system absorbs them with precision. It recognizes them at the molecular level. It knows exactly what to do with them: rebuild tissue, restore circulation, repair damaged vessel walls, and rebalance hormones. But when nutrients arrive in a cold, compressed tablet crafted under industrial heat and pressure, stripped from their original biological structure, the body treats them like strangers at the gate. It resists them. The majority of what you swallow never reaches your cells. That is why natural foods outperform supplements so dramatically. Not because they are exotic or mysterious, but because they are alive. They carry the biological intelligence your body was designed to receive. They speak the molecular language your system understands. And when older men make that shift, something remarkable happens. Blood begins to move again. Warmth returns to the hands, the feet, and eventually to the parts of the body that matter most to a man's sense of self. Sleep deepens, strength rebuilds, Confidence returns, not as a sudden miracle, but as a steady, measurable awakening. Men often ask me, Dr. Lai, why didn't anyone tell me this sooner? The answer, honestly, is simple. There is no profit in simplicity. No television ad for a bowl of fruit. No pharmaceutical lobby behind the healing power of nature. But that is precisely where the real transformation lives, not in laboratories manufacturing pills, but in the intelligence already encoded in food. And here is where the story becomes even more powerful. A massive 4-year scientific study involving over 3,000 men proved this beyond any doubt, revealing results so extraordinary that even the lead researchers were stunned by what they found. So what did they discover, and how did it change everything we know about male aging? Let's talk about it. 3. A 4-year study on 3,000 men proved it. What I am about to share with you may be one of the most important findings in modern men's health, and yet almost no one is talking about it. A discovery so clinically significant that when it was first presented to researchers, many needed to review the data twice before accepting what it showed. Imagine thousands of men, fathers, grandfathers, husbands, men who walked into that study tired, defeated, and quietly terrified that their strongest days were behind them. Men who had tried supplements, medications, and endless promises that led nowhere. Men who felt the slow withdrawal of their strength like a tide pulling away from the shore. And then imagine what it meant when the data came back and proved that everything they had been told for years was dangerously incomplete. For 4 years, more than 3,000 men over the age of 50 were followed closely. Not teenagers, not elite athletes. Real men with real bodies, real problems, and real hope. 2 groups were compared. One relied primarily on supplements, especially synthetic zinc tablets. The other made a targeted shift to specific natural foods. No complicated protocols, no extreme elimination diets, just real food, eaten consistently and strategically. The results were unambiguous. The group that depended on supplements saw little to no measurable improvement. Their circulation barely shifted. Their morning performance stayed flat or declined further. Their sleep remained fragmented and shallow. Their confidence continued to erode. It was the same story these men had lived for years. Effort without reward, investment without return. But the men who received their key nutrients from whole foods experienced something dramatically different. Their bodies responded with speed and consistency. Blood flowed more freely. Energy levels climbed. They woke up feeling alive in a way many had not experienced in years. According to the published results, there was an 82% improvement in overall circulation and vitality, and an extraordinary 91% of participants reported a restoration of strong morning responses, something many had genuinely believed was gone forever. When the study concluded, the lead researcher stood before his colleagues and stated, "We did not expect this level of transformation. It wasn't a new drug. It wasn't a more advanced formula. It was nature. It was food doing precisely what food was always designed to do, repair the body from the inside out." As a physician and research scientist, I want to be direct with you about what those numbers mean. An 82% improvement in circulation is not a marginal result. A 91% restoration rate is not statistical noise. Those are findings that should be reshaping clinical practice right now. And for the men involved, the message was unmistakable. Decline did not come from age. It came from starving the body of nutrients in a form it could actually use. The breakthrough was not just in the data. It was in the realization that men do not have to surrender. There is a path forward, one that honors biology rather than fighting against it. And now the next question becomes the most important of all. Which specific foods produced these results? Because in that same study, 3 natural fruits stood above everything else, fundamentally reshaping what is possible for men over 60. Let's examine them now. 4. 3 powerful fruits that support performance: blood flow, and sleep. There comes a moment in every man's life when he looks in the mirror and recognizes that sheer willpower is no longer the answer. You can fight, push, grind, project strength outwardly. But inside, you know something has changed. The body that once responded instantly now hesitates. The energy that once carried you through long days now drains before noon. And the mornings that once confirmed your strength now arrive silent and without signal. It is a quiet kind of loss, one many men carry alone, because they were taught that silence is a virtue and struggle is private. They wait, assuming that tomorrow will somehow be different. But tomorrow does not change unless something inside the body changes first. And here is the part most men never hear, because no one with scientific authority has laid it out clearly enough. Restoring performance and circulation is not about forcing the body into submission. It is about giving the body the natural tools it needs to repair itself. Tools it was designed by millions of years of evolution to recognize and use. In that 4-year study of 3,000 men, there was one specific discovery that changed the entire conversation. The men who improved the fastest and who sustained those improvements the longest were not the ones who pushed hardest or took more supplements. They were the ones who added 3 specific natural fruits to their daily routine. These 3 fruits work through distinct biological pathways, each addressing a separate critical mechanism of male aging. The first supports blood flow and artery elasticity at the structural level. The second restores nitric oxide and vascular responsiveness, the signaling chemistry of circulation. And the third calms systemic inflammation, protects the prostate, and allows the deep restorative sleep in which the body actually heals. This was not a minor statistical improvement. It was a documented physiological transformation. Blood vessels that had stiffened over decades began to open again. Nitric oxide, which declines sharply after age 50 and is biochemically essential for strong erectile function, returned toward youthful concentrations. Nighttime urination decreased. Deep sleep returned. And with it came the hormonal balance that men over 60 desperately need. The beauty of this approach is its accessibility. No injections, no clinical procedures, no complicated protocols or prescriptions, just 3 fruits working together through complementary biological mechanisms, rebuilding what time has worn down. And the men who committed to this approach discovered something that no pill could have given them. Aging does not have to be a slow surrender. It can be a return, a measurable, science-backed return to circulation, vitality, and the feeling of being fully present in your own body. So let us begin with the first fruit. Because once you understand what it does inside the vascular system, you will never look at it the same way again. 5. Fruit number 1, pomegranate. There is a reason ancient civilizations called this fruit a symbol of life, power, and vitality. Kings consumed it before battle. Healers prescribed it to men who felt themselves declining. And today, modern vascular science is finally validating what history already understood. That pomegranate is one of the most powerful natural tools available for restoring blood flow and performance in aging men. Most men look at it on a grocery shelf and see just a fruit. They have no idea what it is capable of at the cellular level. And that gap in knowledge is costing them years of vitality. Here is the clinical reality. Every instance of strong physical performance, every surge of energy, every moment of masculine confidence depends fundamentally on blood flow. It is not a peripheral biological process. It is the central mechanism of male identity. But after 60, nitric oxide levels collapse. Blood vessel walls stiffen. The arterial system loses elasticity. And the body stops responding the way it once did. You can possess every intention, every desire, but the physiology stays silent. I have sat across from men who describe this with raw honesty. Dr. Lee, I still love my wife. I still want that closeness. But my body has gone somewhere I cannot follow. That pain is real. It fractures relationships quietly. It erodes a man from the inside over months and years, without ever showing up on a standard blood panel. This is where pomegranate becomes more than a nutritional choice. It becomes a clinical intervention. Pomegranate contains a group of powerful bioactive compounds called punicologens and polyphenols. Their documented effect on the cardiovascular system is remarkable. They repair and regenerate the endothelial lining inside blood vessels, the thin cellular layer that controls arterial dilation and regulates how much blood can move through the vascular system at any moment. When that lining is damaged by age and inflammation, circulation becomes restricted. But when it heals, blood can flow again with the force and volume the body requires. In a peer-reviewed clinical study conducted at UCLA, men who consumed pomegranate demonstrated up to a 300% improvement in erectile blood flow, not placebo effect, not self-reported sentiment, but measurable, reproducible physiological change. They reported stronger morning responses, deeper sleep quality, improved peripheral circulation in the hands and feet, and a return of confidence they had long since stopped expecting. What makes pomegranate particularly strategic is its timing synergy with sleep. During the night, the body enters its primary repair cycle. Blood vessels rebuild, hormones recalibrate, damaged tissue regenerates. When pomegranate is consumed 30 to 45 minutes before bed, its bioactive compounds enter the bloodstream and work steadily through the night, restoring what time and oxidative stress have taken. Men who adopt this approach describe waking up and sensing something they had forgotten. Warmth, circulation, a pulse of life where everything had gone quiet. So the next question becomes compelling. If one fruit can rebuild blood flow this dramatically, what happens when you combine it with a second fruit that amplifies nitric oxide production even further? A compound researchers have actually compared to a well-known pharmaceutical. Because the next fruit is extraordinary, and its mechanism is one of the most well-documented in vascular medicine. 6. Fruit number 2, watermelon. There is a clinical fact most men have never been told, and if they understood it fully, it would redirect the way they approach their health entirely. One of the most potent natural compounds for restoring vascular function and circulatory performance in men is not found in a pharmaceutical, not manufactured in a lab, and does not require a prescription. It is found in watermelon. Researchers have not been shy about the comparison. They call it nature's Viagra. And once you understand the biochemistry, that description is not hyperbole. It is accurate. I have spoken with men who describe feeling like strangers inhabiting a body that no longer responds to them. Men who still want connection, closeness, and intimacy, but experience their physiology as an obstacle rather than an ally. One man sat across from me and said with complete seriousness, "Dr. Lee, I feel trapped inside a body that simply will not cooperate." Those words stayed with me. Behind them was a man who had given decades to building a life, to his family, his career, his community, and now felt that the most fundamental aspects of his identity had been quietly revoked. Men who feel this way deserve a real answer, not another supplement that bypasses the underlying biology. And watermelon provides exactly that. Watermelon is one of the richest known dietary sources of an amino acid called L-citrulline. Inside the body, L-citrulline is converted directly into L-arginine, which then catalyzes the production of nitric oxide, the molecule responsible for signaling blood vessels to relax and dilate. Without adequate nitric oxide, there is no meaningful blood flow. And without blood flow, there is no performance, no physical responsiveness, no morning strength. After 60, nitric oxide bioavailability drops precipitously in many men by more than 70%. The consequence is a body that feels chronically cold, sluggish, and disconnected from its own signals. It is not a character flaw, it is a molecular deficit. But when watermelon delivers L-citrulline in its natural bioavailable form, the vascular response is measurable and real. Blood vessels begin to open. Peripheral circulation improves. Warmth returns to the extremities and to the regions of the body that define masculine function. Men describe noticing a pulse, a fullness, a physical presence they had assumed was permanently gone. What distinguishes watermelon from pharmaceutical interventions is the mechanism of delivery. Unlike tablets competing with weakened digestive chemistry, watermelon's nutrients enter the bloodstream in a form the body handles effortlessly. The change arrives not dramatically, but steadily, the way a river returns after a dry season, quiet but unmistakable. Men who add watermelon to their evening routine describe looking in the mirror and recognizing something in their own face that had gone absent for years. A sense of physical presence, of being here. And this is where the science deepens further. Because while watermelon fuels nitric oxide and restores vascular responsiveness, it addresses only one dimension of the problem. The body also needs inflammation control, hormonal balance, and prostate support to rebuild the deep restorative sleep that makes lasting morning performance possible. That is the role of the third fruit, and what it does is unlike anything a supplement has ever been able to replicate effectively. 7. Fruit number 3. Dark grapes with seeds and skin. There is a dimension of this problem that men rarely speak about, not because it does not exist, but because admitting it feels like a particular kind of defeat. The battle is not only about blood flow or daytime performance. It is about the night. It is about waking at 2 M, 3 M, 4 M, walking in the dark to the bathroom, standing there gripping the counter, and wondering how it came to this. It is about lying back down beside the woman who has shared your life for decades and staring at the ceiling, unable to return to sleep, your mind running in circles you cannot stop. It is about mornings that arrive with exhaustion instead of energy, silence instead of strength. And over time, that wears through more than physical tissue. It dismantles confidence, it creates a low-grade dread of bedtime, and it disconnects men from the recovery cycle their bodies desperately need. I want to be direct with you about something that most clinicians underemphasize. When the body cannot achieve deep sleep, nothing else works properly. Testosterone cannot be synthesized at adequate levels. Blood vessels cannot complete their nightly repair cycle. Inflammation builds unchecked, and the result is a man who does everything right during the day and still wakes up feeling worse than the night before. This is exactly why dark grapes, particularly the seeds and skin, represent a critical pillar of this approach. And the compound responsible is one of the most extensively studied natural molecules in vascular and anti-aging medicine, resveratrol. Resveratrol, concentrated in the skin and seeds of dark grapes, operates through multiple simultaneous mechanisms. It protects the endothelial lining of blood vessels, reduces the systemic inflammation that causes arteries to constrict, and enhances nitric oxide production to maintain smooth, consistent circulation. These benefits reinforce and amplify the work of pomegranate and watermelon, completing the vascular restoration cycle. But resveratrol's most clinically significant benefit for men over 60 may be its effect on the prostate and bladder. By reducing localized inflammation in the prostate gland, it calms the overactive neurological signals that force men out of bed repeatedly throughout the night. When inflammation is reduced and circulation improves, the bladder relaxes, the prostate stops creating pressure and urgency, and the body can finally descend into the deep, uninterrupted sleep stages where genuine cellular repair occurs. Men who add dark grapes consistently to their evening nutrition report something that surprises them. They say they wake up rested, not just adequately rested, genuinely, noticeably, profoundly rested for the first time in years. They feel warmth in their body, clarity in their thinking, and a return of physical energy they had classified as permanently lost. Their partners comment on changes without being asked, not because they gained muscle overnight, but because they recovered something more fundamental, the feeling of being a man who is present, alive, and operating at capacity. And what makes this particularly important from a nutritional standpoint is that the greatest concentration of resveratrol and protective polyphenols exists in the parts of dark grapes most people discard, the seeds and the skin. The slightly bitter edge of a dark grape is not a flaw. It is where the restoration begins. So now the three pillars are in place. Circulation is rebuilding. Nitric oxide is rising. Sleep is returning. And morning strength is beginning to awaken. But there is one final variable that determines whether these changes become permanent or fade back into silence. It is not what you eat. It is when you eat it. And once you understand the biology of nighttime regeneration, everything else will lock into focus. 8. Nighttime is the key. Most men operate under an assumption that healing happens during waking hours, that strength is built while active, while moving, while deliberately working at something. It is a reasonable assumption, and for certain systems, it is partially correct. But for the vascular system, the hormonal system, and the mechanisms of cellular repair, the most powerful regeneration the body performs does not happen while you are awake. It happens while you sleep. And for men over 60, the night is not simply a recovery period. It is the single most critical biological window for restoring circulation, recalibrating testosterone, repairing damaged blood vessel walls, reducing systemic inflammation, and preparing the body for strong morning performance. Miss the night, and you miss the transformation. That is not metaphor. It is biological law. The tragedy, as I see it clinically, is that most older men never access true healing sleep. They spend hours in bed, unable to fall into deep stages of rest, or they wake repeatedly to use the bathroom, never reaching the slow-wave sleep phases where vascular repair and hormonal synthesis actually occur. Their bodies spend the night in low-level stress mode instead of rebuilding. They rise in the morning with their blood vessels unchanged, their testosterone suppressed, and their mornings empty. And with each passing year, the gap widens between the man they know themselves to be and the man their physiology is delivering. I have watched men describe this with a kind of quiet devastation. They do not fear death. They fear disappearing while still present. They miss the simple certainty of waking up ready. They miss power. They miss clarity. They miss the version of themselves that inhabited their body with authority. But something measurable and reproducible occurs when the body receives the right nutritional input before sleep. When pomegranate repairs and regenerates vessel wall integrity. When watermelon fuels nitric oxide bioavailability. When dark grapes reduce inflammation and relax the prostate. Something that had been dormant begins to reactivate. Blood vessels open. Hormones recalibrate. Sleep deepens into the restorative phases scientists identify as the window of nighttime regeneration. And when that process occurs consistently, healing that once seemed remote becomes biologically inevitable. Timing is everything here, and the data from the 3,000-man study confirms it. When these three fruits are consumed 30 to 45 minutes before sleep, their bioactive compounds enter the system and work through the bloodstream steadily and continuously, repairing while the conscious mind rests. That is precisely why the study produced the results it did. It was not the novelty of the foods. It was the precision of the timing. Men who had been silent for years began to speak with something new in their voice. They moved with a different quality of confidence. They woke up and experienced what they had quietly grieved as permanently lost. Not because a drug forced it, because their biology was finally given what it needed, when it needed it. The path forward is now clear. Synthetic pills do not fail because the problem is unsolvable. They fail because they ignore the natural rhythm of human biology. But when you align with that rhythm instead of working against it, change becomes not just possible, it becomes predictable. And that leads us to the question that matters most. Conclusion: if you are still watching this, it tells me something important about you. It tells me that beneath the frustration, beneath the silence, beneath the years of disappointment and unanswered questions, there is a man who has not given up on himself. A man who refuses to accept the idea that decline is simply destiny. A man who knows, at some fundamental level, that strength, vitality, and connection are not memories to be preserved behind glass. They are biological possibilities waiting to be reactivated. And I want you to hear this from me directly, as a physician who has spent 3 decades studying what the human body is capable of when it receives the right support. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not finished. You are a man whose body has been waiting for the right tools, the right nourishment, and the right timing. For too long, men have been told to manage their decline quietly, to accept reduced function as an inevitable feature of the second half of life. I reject that framing entirely, not as optimism, but as a conclusion supported by data. I have sat across from men who served in extraordinary capacities, who built families and careers and communities, who carried burdens most people never see. And I have watched those same men feel more fear about losing their physical identity than about anything else they had ever faced. Not fear of death, fear of disappearing while still present, fear of becoming a diminished version of a man who once moved through the world with full authority. That silence is the heaviest weight a man can carry, and it is unnecessary. Now you know the truth. The failure was never yours. It was in the tools you were given. You understand why synthetic zinc pills lost their effectiveness in your system. You understand why your body was being starved of nutrients it could no longer absorb in tablet form. You have seen the proof from more than 3,000 men who reclaimed their strength, their sleep, their mornings, and their confidence. Not through prescriptions or expensive procedures, but through the precise and strategic use of natural foods. You know how pomegranate repairs vascular endothelium. You understand how watermelon restores nitric oxide and reactivates circulation. You have seen how dark grapes reduce inflammation, protect the prostate, and return the deep sleep your body needs to rebuild. And you now understand why the timing of those nighttime hours is the key that makes everything else work. Change does not come from force. It comes from nourishment. It comes from alignment with biology. It comes from consistency applied at the right moment. So the question before you now is not complex or scientific. It is personal. Are you willing to begin? Are you willing to take a path that is simple, evidence-based, and within your reach starting tonight? Because transformation does not begin with a miracle. It begins with a decision. A decision to stop surrendering to a process that is not inevitable. A decision to stop waiting for something to change on its own. A decision to stop believing the story that the best version of your life has already passed. It has not. Tonight, when the world grows quiet and the day is done, you will have a choice. You can continue doing what you have always done and wake up tomorrow in exactly the same place you are standing right now. Or you can make a different choice. One small, deliberate, evidence-backed step, and set in motion the return of everything you thought aging had taken from you. Circulation, strength, confidence, rest, mornings that mean something again. A man's life does not end when his body begins to change. It ends when he stops believing he has the capacity to change it back. And based on everything science now tells us, that belief would be wrong. So I ask you, as a physician and as someone who has watched this transformation happen in real men with real biology, if tonight could be the beginning of your return, would you take it? Start tonight and watch what happens next.